And we have a Mensch here, and the guy who actually every year gives out Mensch Awards, Stephen Geiger, who's a friend and a Mensch, and he has some awards that he's giving out that he wanted to do here. Last year he did it at Temple of the Arts in Beverly Hills. Now I don't want to say we're at the same level of Beverly Hills here in Santa Clarita, but that's where he was last year, and now he's here. So he's either going up or going down.
Hi, how are you?
Stephen.
It's true I was at Temple of the Arts last year, but I'm even more thrilled to be here today. When I was growing up in Los Angeles in the 60s, I had no idea where Newhall was or Santa Clarita was. As a matter of fact, I never dated a girl in the Valley. She was geographically undesirable. Well, it's a very long time ago. But it's actually true. People in the western section didn't go schlep over here just for a date, and you never know what you, and at that time you never know what you got from that girl anyway. So, so as a young, virile, Jewish, redheaded guy, it was just not okay. But I'm glad to be here today with my wife, who's from Hungary originally, and so am I from Hungary originally. You know, when you're talking about the secrecy of not being secret about the menorah, in Hungary, all of us who are my generation, I'm already an alta kaker, 75 years old, we're children of Holocaust survivors. My father was in Mauthausen concentration camp, and my paternal grandparents were gassed in Auschwitz, and my father's two sisters were gassed in Auschwitz, about another 70 relatives were gassed in Auschwitz. So the people who did survive in Budapest and ended up staying there, not emigrating either to Israel, to the United States, Canada, Australia, wherever, they were very secret about being Jewish. My wife's, whose parents are Jewish and whose father was circumcised and whose uncle was bar mitzvahed, after the war, they never told their neighbors that they were Jewish. I told them later on, I'm sure they knew who you were just by looking at you. But nevertheless, most Jews were quite quiet about it. A mezuzah, if they had a mezuzah, it was inside and not outside. Most people didn't even have a mezuzah. Most people after the war who survived, including my father, became atheists after what happened to us. It was very hard to believe that there was a God who would do this to us. As a matter of fact, yesterday I was in Palm Springs where I live at a Hanukkah celebration. And I had a very hard time enjoying, even now with this great singing, it's very hard when I think about the 138 people in the tunnel in Gaza, this forsaken place. I was in Gaza border on the Israel side in 2014, and I knew the security they're doing. I used to live in Israel as well. And for me to think about it, here we are in Newhall, Santa Clarita, trying to celebrate Hanukkah, as we should, because Jewish tradition is Chaim, l'chaim. But nevertheless, I cannot help thinking about those people there. And about IDF soldiers, yesterday I saw some photos on social media that Mark was talking about, where they were singing Hanukkah songs and saying bruchas for Hanukkah as they were fighting Hamas. 92 soldiers have died already, besides the 1,200. So we're going through rough times. We're lucky to be here, and we hope we can continue fighting. Today is also special. This is December the 8th. 45 years ago is the yahrzeit of Golda Meir, 1978. It's a long time ago. I met her a couple of times. I was a security guard in San Francisco at a very big synagogue there called Temple Emmanuel in 1977. And so today is a yahrzeit of Golda Meir, who we all know and cherish, and what a great human being she was. Speaking of great human beings, we lost somebody here just a few weeks ago, Paul Kessler. Paul Kessler demonstrated for Israel, big flag on his side, And one of the counter demonstrators for the Palestinians apparently hit him with a megaphone, and he fell down and, as you know, broke his head and passed away. So one of the Mensch Awards is for Paul, but it's also a Mensch Award for his good friend, Jonathan Osweigs. Jonathan, would you please come up? Jonathan, I believe you're still out there doing your shtick. And is that true or not?
Yeah, I don't learn too well.
You don't learn too well. You learn very well. As I mentioned, as I saw here, there's a Vietnam veteran in the back. Thank you for your service. And a Marine who was just awarded. And there's another gentleman who's a former military person. Listen, it's important. It's important. We're all Americans. We're all Israelis. And we are all human beings who try to do the most for our surroundings. And we fight not only for ourselves when we fight for our children. We fight for the society that we have, the freedoms that we do enjoy. And it's important to do that. And you're out there. And this is the award for Paul Kessler. I'd like you to accept for him. He's not here. And give it to one of his family members. Can you read that, please?
Yes, it says, Paul Kessler, a Mensch for all seasons. We thank you for being what you are, and you exemplify the best of humanity. Thank you.
And you also exemplify the best of humanity, Jonathan, and keep safe out there.
I'll try.
And I have a award just like that for you. It's in the making back in Atlanta somewhere, so it's coming.
So I have to keep this up until that arrives.
Exactly.
But I want to say before
It's in the mail.
before Jonathan sits down.
I know that joke.
It's okay. I have a mic. So before Jonathan sits down, I just want to recognize that, again, I got to meet Jonathan about a month ago. And he actually, the first time I spoke to him, Paul, we did not know Paul was dead. And then later on that day is when we found out, we knew he was in the hospital, and then found out later that day, that Monday, that he was dead. And ever since that time, Jonathan has pretty much been working around the clock. I mean, nonstop, going to rallies, keeping this story out in the media, and making sure that people don't forget what's going on. So it's been an honor and pleasure to get to meet him and get to know him over these last weeks. He's already become a great friend, and he also he went through he was at the Naval Academy. So again, another person who understands service to our country. And I want to thank Jonathan for being out there. This is not a guy, and neither was Paul. These were not people who were going to rallies and doing a lot of work in the community before October 7th. And so these are people who essentially became warriors for Israel in the last couple of months. And it's not easy. So we really appreciate it. And again, it's been an honor to get to know you over these last weeks. And we're going to keep working together. I think Jonathan's going to try to come out on Monday for the firearms training and safety here at Beth and me, which we're going to be doing with Richard, who's in the back right now. But there's a flyer about the introduction to firearm safety back there. That's going to be Monday night at 7 o'clock. And we're going to be doing that December 11th. And then again, for people who miss it, January 16th. And Richard's going to be doing that class, facilitating that class. But this Monday coming up, in addition to doing that class, we're going to light the menorah because, again, it reminds us that we're in the middle of Hanukkah. We're thinking about the modern-day Maccabees, and Jonathan is definitely one of those, and Stephen as well, people that are fighting for our country. So thank you, Jonathan, for everything you're doing for our community and for Israel.
You are a mensch.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to see that you were so choked up about Paul. he's very deserving, and wherever he is, he probably knows that this is it.
Thank you.
Now, Stephen has an award for somebody that is also with us virtually.
I have about 30 awards,
doesn't. He
so I'll
doesn't
be
have-
here till tomorrow
He has,
morning.
he has an award. He has an award for a friend of ours who's on virtually, and I can see him there on virtually. He's there on our screen right now, and he's a very good friend, and we're going to give it this award. This is entirely done by Stephen, I want to point out. Stephen is the only one who gets to select.
Just to know, even though I'm Jewish and I like other people who are Jewish, I like to give awards to Goyim as well,
But
especially those who are not only doing things for Jewish people, but who are doing things for humanity.
Yeah.
And I think John Shaver is one of those human beings.
And John, you're on, so we can make sure John can be heard.
John, you are our Shabbos Goy tonight. Thank you very, very much, all that you do in your church. And I'm sorry you couldn't be here today. You are a mensch for all seasons, and Mark knows that more than I do. And this will be coming to you by Pony Express.
Well, I hope to give it to him, so make sure we can hear John. John, your
Hi.
acceptance speech.
Wo bist du?
No, and I think Rabbi told me a little bit later in the week, so I would have loved to have been up with you. And I was going to share some things in Hebrew, but my family's in the other room and they told me not to. So I'm not going to try and use my Hebrew. But I just wanted to share a quote with you all from Edith Wharton. She said, "There are two ways of spreading light as we come into Hanukkah, and for in our Christian community now, it's Advent." And so last night we have a meal ministry at our church. And so I shared with everyone that it was the first night of Hanukkah, and we had some people who weren't able to go to the temple because they were coming to help share food with those who are unhoused in our community. And it was just wonderful because the people that were there and weren't able to celebrate Hanukkah saw the lights that we had shining, and they were just ecstatic that we could celebrate Hanukkah together. But there's a quote that says, "There are two ways of spreading light, to be the candle or the mirror that reflects it." And I just want to thank Rabbi Blazer because he's often the candle when we're together. I call each other the partners in faith, and Rabbi's often the candle, and I just get to be in the mirror. And one of my top 10 things in my life was just being able to go to Israel with Rabbi this last February. And we had an amazing trip other than the Dead Sea, which he can tell you about. But Mr. Geiger, thank you so much. And I love Palm Springs, so I will look forward to meeting you one of these days. And our
Well, wait, John, before you go to the Dead Sea, it's one thing, it is recommended, by the way, if you ever go to the Dead Sea, not to shave before you go to the Dead Sea. But John seemed to have shaved with like a butter knife that night, the day before. So yeah, he had, he was definitely feeling it. But in all seriousness, when John decided to not only come on the trip, but bring a good part of his congregation on that trip, what John did was essentially retool what he normally does. He normally is on a mission in Nicaragua helping to bring water and food and literally building buildings for a mission in Nicaragua. When the Nicaraguan government shut that down, he called me and said, I can go to Israel this year. But that's what he would have been doing normally. So instead of going on a trip with his family, he decided to join on this mission to Israel that we did back in February, which John and Glory were on. They're back on Facebook now. I know they're listening. But a lot of our community got to be a part of John's community and part of his goodness and his warmth. So we miss him a lot. When he was here at Valencia, we got to become friends, and we got to work on Family Promise. It was actually John and his community that were the leaders of Family Promise, and we came on right after, and we helped create something very special in our community to help those without homes, especially and only really for families, for children and their parents. So John is a great friend and a great man, and I want to tell you something too, and he's not going to say it, he would never say it, but it was not always easy for him to stand with Israel because there are people, as there are in every community, who try to marginalize Israel and those who support Israel. And he did go out on a limb to be a part of that trip, which I'll never forget. And again, I think the people who went on that trip really appreciated it, but I don't think they appreciated the sacrifice and the courage that it took for him to do that too. Unfortunately, maybe even harder in the future for people in some denominations in this country to do what he did. So we want to thank you, John, for doing that too.
John, you mentioned Palm Springs. In January, we're having the second Interfaith Conference on Anti-Semitism with priests from the Catholic Church and other reverends, and you're invited to come. It's a very important conference. We teach people how to become anti-Semites. Oh, that's not it, actually. Anyway, thank you. Good to meet you. And you're a first-class mensch and a very good goy.
Thank you. And thank you so much. And as I've shared with Rabbi Glazer along the way, the prayers from our congregation are with all of you, as he shared with you before. But thank you so much. This is a great honor.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom to you.
Shabbat shalom.
I mentioned Hungary. One of the other countries who suffered a lot during World War II, the Jews in this country called Lithuania. Anybody have family from Lithuania? Ah, okay. Grandparents? And parents. Oh. Lithuania was a very strong Jewish community. It was rabbinically, historically, and the Lithuanian government has been very good at becoming Holocaust deniers. They've done a perfect job. And there's a gentleman from South Africa, a Jewish man, called Grant Arthur Goshen. Grant, please come up. Grant has been fighting day and night against the Lithuanian government, and he's had some success. I will let you talk about that a little bit.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Shabbat shalom. I'll be as quick as possible. There's no way to summarize 35 years of a full-scale war in a few minutes. So let me just draw an analogy. On October the 7th, Israel was attacked, and there was a pogrom. And in that pogrom, 0.013% of Israelis were murdered. The number in Lithuania was 96.4%. After the pogrom in Israel on October the 7th, by October the 8th, the lies were beginning. If you go onto social media today, you will see the worst slanders against Israel imaginable. The lies and the slanders began in Lithuania simultaneous with the murders. The Lithuanian government rewrote the Holocaust in Lithuania. They declared Lithuanians rescuers, and they blamed the murders on everybody else. By this time, 82 years ago, almost 80% of Lithuanian Jews had already been murdered at the hands of Lithuanians. It wasn't until January 20th, 1942, that Hitler and the Nazis devised the final solution. By the time the Nazis devised the final solution, 80% of Lithuanian Jews had already been murdered almost exclusively at the hands of Lithuanians. The storyline Lithuania devised is that every one of them was secretly trying to rescue a Jew. Nobody saw who did the murders. They weren't responsible. They didn't hear, they didn't see, they didn't know. They were all too busy rescuing Jews. It is the very definition of historical revisionism and distortion. They couldn't deny the Holocaust, but they denied their culpability. Last year, Stephen honored a woman by the name of Sylvia Foti. Sylvia Foti's grandfather murdered mine. Over a decade ago, I stepped forward to ask the government of Lithuania to stop declaring him a national hero and to tell the truth. His granddaughter, the murderer's granddaughter, stepped forward 6 years ago, 5 years ago,
5 years ago.
to join me and admit her grandfather's crimes. The 35-year war that I've had with Lithuania was to get them on record, from the president to the prime minister, to the legal system, to the parliament, as Holocaust distorters and revisionists of the first order. What we have done internationally is shown that there will be a price to murder Jews. We will never allow ourselves to be murdered so blithely and easily without consequence again. If you Google Lithuania today, the biggest story about Lithuania is them being Holocaust revisionists. We have pinned their identity on them clearly and absolutely. It's too much for me to explain to you. I urge you to read Sylvia Foti's book. The title is Storm in the Land of the Rain. There have been 2 documentaries made about these cases and the way we have exposed them. The first one is titled J'accuse. It is after Emile Zola's expose. The second one is titled Baltic Truth. It's actually, the Latvian government is going to show it themselves on January 28th. If anybody wants an invitation, you can contact me. What we have achieved, we will never allow Jews to be murdered without consequences ever again. Our lives have value, and we will stand up. Thank you, Stephen, for giving us a platform.
We've been in touch for the last couple of years, and what you've been doing is fantastic, and you had lots of energy, and you're a mensch. And your award is also in the mail. And it's unusual that you and I both have such Brooklyn accents.
It comes deep. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Last but not least, I had a very good friend who passed away 3 years ago. You might know his name, Phil Blazer. And Phil Blazer in this community has done a great work for many years. He was a very good friend, and 3 years ago he received the Mensch Award, again in the western part of Los Angeles. He was no longer alive then, and his son Mark accepted it for him. Now, we have given this Mensch Award about 45 times throughout the world. 3 presidents have received it. One is President of Hungary, Arpad Günz. You guys won't know that, but if you Google G-O-N-C-Z. Another president was Itzhak Navon, who received it, and the third one was H.W. Bush and Barbara. That was in 2017, because they helped, Bush helped Israel to get the Ethiopian Jews out of Ethiopia at that time. And sometimes I've experienced that some of these menschers that received the award, they have children, so they beget little children who are not really menschers, but little schmendricks. But Blazer Phil, luckily, did not beget a schmendrick, but a mensch, Mark. Mark, come on up. You are a mensch, not a schmendrick. And I love you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you very much. So are we the first, as my father and I, are we the first father and son to have won the award?
Yes, actually.
There you go. So-
I never thought.
so
I never thought about that, but that's
I'm
true.
very proud of that. If you give one to George W. Bush, then we both can, father
don't
and son.
wanna- we don't
All right,
make-
I'm not going to
we
say
don't
that.
wanna
I'm just
make a
gonna-
habit
just
of
going to
this.
say anything. But I could have another father and son combination. Thank you very much, Stephen, for that recognition
Mark,
and again for the award.
as your congregation knows, I don't have to sell you to them. You are a Mensch.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for the award. And that's not why we had you here tonight, Stephen. To give me an
I have a
award.
secret, Mensch. Before I leave this, it's hard for me to leave a microphone.
So many awards tonight. So many awards.
This is a new Mensch.
Steve. So this is,
She's 10 months old.
yes.
Say hello. No yarmulke.
But yeah, this is a very special treasure to you. I
She
know.
doesn't bark.
This is your special treasure. So we're glad. Yeah.
What's her name?
Missy.
Missy.
Missy number 2. We had another dog for many years who we loved very much. She went to Jewish heaven, wherever that is, and we couldn't live without a four-legged animal in the house. My wife, she doesn't speak. My wife yells at me all day long, so I need somebody who doesn't yell.
It's Missy number 2. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all. Shabbat
Thanks,
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Good Hanukkah.